Brooks, a lot of people nearing retirement, they've accumulated a lot of savings in 401ks. I think between, accumulating equity in a home, that's probably the other method that most Americans accumulate wealth is in their 401k. So, as we discussed in the past, a lot of that accumulation is, due to either their deferral or a company match or some sort of profit sharing component. Usually, the company match and profit sharing component are pre-tax, and oftentimes the deferral is pre-tax as well. So you see a lot of people nearing retirement with a lot of money in pre-tax dollars. So a lot of people have heard the term Roth conversion. Can you elaborate on what that means and maybe give some pointers as to when that could be a good strategy?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, Roth conversion is a great tactic to use, especially in those years leading up to the required minimum distributions of your IRA. So, if, for instance, if I'm a 65-year-old in 2024, my required minimum distribution is going to be 73. Okay, so that gives me 8 years before I'm actually having to required to take money out of an IRA and be subject to ordinary income taxes on that IRA. So usually in that window, we're taking Social Security, we're taking money out of our after-tax account that's taxed at preferential tax treatments, not included as an ordinary income component. So we're technically probably in the years that are going to be our lowest effective tax rate, right? So, a tactic that most people use in order to get to the bucket strategy of having a little bit of Roth, a little bit of pre-tax, a little bit of after tax so that we can distribution plan is to go ahead and say, hey, because we're in such a low income tax bracket now, we've got a window now that maybe we can't get all of it, but maybe we're in a situation where we could get a quarter of it or half of it and withdraw it year over year at certain increments that make sense from a tax perspective or what the client's comfortable with to go ahead and say, hey, I want to take out X amount this year and I want to take it out of the IRA. I want to contribute it to my Roth IRA. I'm going to pay taxes on it. We're not avoiding taxes here. We're just prepaying at a lot lower rate than what we would later on so that that Roth from that point on can grow tax free. And, that's great for distribution planning, but it's also great for generational planning. Because if I leave a pre tax IRA at the end of my life, my kids are going to, in today's legislation, are going to get that IRA and be forced to withdraw that over 10 years. Well, technically speaking, by that point, your kids are probably working. So they've already got enough income that's being generated at a high income tax bracket. Now they've got this IRA that they've got to go be forced to take distributions out of over a 10-year period. So they're going to pay the highest effective tax on these IRA distributions that you've bestowed to them from your passing. Whereas if we can get some of that wealth out of the IRA at a lower tax rate, put it in the Roth environment, that's going to go out to the kids tax free day one.
I think when we're discussing Roth conversions, the basic strategy there is I think I'm going to be in a higher tax bracket in the future than I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you mentioned, there's a window typically. I've retired, that employment income is gone. My required minimum distributions from those pre-tax dollars has not started yet. So I have this window where I'm in a lower tax bracket
Mm-hmm.
and I can pull money out of the pre-tax dollars, pay taxes on it, get it into the Roth. I anticipate I'll be in a higher bracket later and I can take the money out of the Roth at that time tax free. I would also advocate, even if that math doesn't work out quite the same way, even if you think that you're maybe in the same tax bracket now as you will be 15 years from now, I would advocate that it could make sense to take a small portion annually, as you mentioned, during that window, and go ahead and convert it to Roth simply because, again, like we've discussed, the uncertainty of the future. We talk about diversification with investments, diversify amongst different asset classes. I think it's prudent to diversify your tax strategy the same way. Have a diversified collection of accounts with different tax character,
Mm-hmm.
so that regardless of what comes about in an uncertain future, you can adapt and make decisions that will be most beneficial for you at the time.
And I think you hit a good point there, Grant, because we talk. I know we've written several articles on this, and most people would either watch this or read those articles and say, "Well, heck, I fall into that category. That's definitely something I should do." And that's not necessarily the case. It doesn't always work out that way because sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes there's other underlying income sources or metrics that fall into place that it's not going to be a huge benefit for you to do it now. So that's why it's again really important to work with a advisor to talk about the different strategies that are available for you, given your time period, the balance that's in that pre-tax environment, and what makes sense to take out. We have a lot of clients that have done these Roth conversions with no anticipated tax savings because it didn't work out, but they knew that they weren't going to necessarily need that money. So they said, I'd rather get this put into a tax-free environment and be a generational planning tool as well. So there's not just hey, we're going to save you a bunch of taxes by doing this. There's other benefits to doing this as well. And we've got, I've know of a couple clients that we do these kinds of these conversions even after RMDs have started because we did the math and it's still effectively low enough that they feel like it makes sense. So it's not we got to wait, after RMDs start, we can't do it anymore. You still can. It's just got to be very, very well calculated so that you're not overpaying in the tax implications.
And you make a good point about, time. The longer you have post-conversion for the Roth assets to grow and make up that tax liability that you had to pay out, the better the better off you'll be, and the more it makes sense to go ahead and do the conversion. So, when you get into those situations where now you're doing, heirship planning, how are we going to pass assets to our heirs? The Roth conversion, I think, can be raised to the focal point even further, because now your time horizon is extended to not just your lifetime, but the ages of your kids. So further justifying good reasons to look into a Roth conversion.